The day my son placed a real estate folder on my dining table and told me selling my lake house was the responsible thing, he thought I would do exactly what I had always done. Keep the peace, smile gently, ask for time, and quietly disappear into the background of everyone else's plans. What he didn't know was that 40 minutes earlier, while he and his wife were still in my driveway rehearsing how to handle me, my phone had already captured every single word of their conversation. How much the house might list for, how fast they could clear out my furniture, how much easier I would be to manage once I was tucked away in a smaller place with supervision. And the line that finally broke something open inside me, my daughter-in-law's mother casually asking whether the boathouse could be turned into a summer rental once I was gone. I didn't interrupt them. I didn't storm outside. I simply set the phone face down beside my coffee cup, pressed save, and waited for them to walk in and try to sell me my own future. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who are supposed to love you most, stay with me. Because the morning my son tried to pressure me out of the only home that still remembered my husband was the morning I finally stopped confusing silence with weakness. My name is Marianne Holloway. I'm 61 years old, a widow, a former public library director, and the owner of a Cedar Lake house outside Traverse City, Michigan. 26 years ago, my husband Thomas and I bought this place when it was still falling apart. Leaky roof, crooked dock, kitchen stuck in the 1980s. But the first time we stepped onto the back deck, Thomas looked out at the water and said, "If we're going to grow old anywhere, it should be somewhere that knows how to be quiet." So we did. We raised our son Caleb here. Every summer he learned to swim off the north dock, fish badly, sand canoes, split wood, and complain about it all while secretly loving every minute. After Thomas died 3 years ago, the house didn't feel empty to me. It felt full of us. But younger people often mistake one person living peacefully for loneliness. Caleb visited a lot that first year, brought groceries, changed batteries that didn't need changing, asked if the house felt too big. At the time, I thought it was love. Now I realize it may have been early inventory. 2 years after Thomas passed, Caleb married Brooke. She wasn't rude. She was worse. She was polished, sympathetic, and relentless. The kind of woman who tidies up other people's lives, whether they ask for it or not. The first crack appeared during Labor Day weekend. Brooke stood at my kitchen counter, wine glass in hand, staring at the lake. "This place is incredible, Marianne. Honestly, it's kind of wasted on one person." I smiled the way older women are taught to smile. "Then it's fortunate I'm not wasteful," I said quietly. She laughed. But she remembered I hadn't yielded. After that, the comments came like steady rain. Questions about my estate plan. Suggestions that lakeside living gets dangerous at my age. Hints about how wonderful senior communities had become. Caleb once asked if I'd considered selling while the market was strong and renting a condo near town for convenience. I told him convenience had never once improved a sunset. He didn't laugh. Then, early this spring, Brooke's mother Paula had what they called a housing setback. Translation? They'd overextended themselves in Florida and suddenly needed cash. That's when the pressure turned from suggestions into strategy. One Saturday, Caleb brought pastries and a market report. Dangerous combination. He spread the papers across my table. "Mom, you're sitting on a huge amount of equity here." "I'm also sitting in my own chair," I replied, "which I prefer to keep doing." Brooke leaned in with that soft, concerned voice. "We just don't want you isolated out here forever." I looked out at 2 loons gliding across the water. Isolation and peace are not the same thing. They exchanged a glance. That glance told me everything. They had moved from persuasion to planning. 2 weeks later, I received an email from a real estate assistant thanking me for my openness to listing preparation. I had discussed nothing of the sort. When I called the agency, the receptionist was kind and far too honest. Yes, Caleb had been in touch. Yes, his wife had spoken with them once. No, they had never heard my voice. That was the moment something inside me went very still. There is hot anger. Then there is the cold kind. The kind that arrives when you realize your own family has begun writing the final chapter of your life without you. I didn't confront them right away. Instead, I called my oldest friend, Nora Vance, a retired elder law attorney who still enjoys correcting paperwork for sport. When I told her what was happening, she asked 3 questions. Have you signed anything? No. Have you verbally agreed to anything? No. Do they still think you're hesitating instead of refusing? Yes. Good, she said. Leave it that way. We started collecting evidence, texts, emails, voicemails, the accidental message Brooke sent me. If she keeps dragging her feet, we need to stop making this optional. Then came the call that changed everything. Brooke had stopped by with soup. Caleb went to the garage. She stepped outside to call her mother, not realizing my phone was still paired to the Bluetooth speaker on the entry table. I heard everything. Paula's voice, Brooke's impatient tone, the discussion about timing the sale before summer, the split of proceeds, Caleb's debt, their condo problem, and the casual question, after she moves, what's the split, and can we keep the boathouse for seasonal rental? I didn't walk outside and scream. I did something much more dangerous. I held my phone close to the speaker and recorded every single word. When Brooke came back inside, smiling with her bowl of soup, I thanked her. That afternoon, Nora listened to the recording twice. Then she looked at me and said, Marianne, this isn't concern. This is coordinated financial pressure. We prepared quietly. I changed passwords, removed Caleb from utility accounts, sent a formal letter to the real estate agency withdrawing any implied consent, updated my estate documents with ironclad language, and Nora gave me the best advice. Don't chase them. Let them walk into the meeting they're already planning. 3 days later, Caleb texted, Can we all sit down Sunday? Brooke's parents want to talk options. Calmly. I replied, Sunday at 1. Then I invited my own guests. Nora, a respected broker named Elise Moran, and 2 longtime neighbors who had known Thomas and me for decades. On Sunday, I set the dining table beautifully. Linen napkins, fresh lemon bars, coffee. Not because I was surrendering, because staging matters. Caleb placed the blue listing folder in the center of the table, with visible relief when he saw me smiling. That smile almost broke my heart. Not because I felt guilty, but because my own son had grown so used to mistaking my kindness for weakness. When everyone was seated, Caleb began. Mom, we've put together a path that makes the most sense. Brooke added smoothly, The market is strong. This is the best time for a proactive transition. I let them talk for a few more minutes. Then I opened my own folder. Inside were the printed emails, the texts, the agency correspondence, and the small Bluetooth speaker. Caleb saw it first, his brow furrowed. What is that? The part where we stop pretending, I said quietly. I placed my phone beside it and pressed play. The silence that followed was deafening. Brooke's face went pale. Paula looked furious at being caught. Dennis stared at the table, and Caleb looked at me like I had become a stranger. I didn't raise my voice. I simply laid out every piece of evidence. The unauthorized listing inquiries, the photographer hold, the framing of family support, the casual discussion of dividing my home before I had even agreed to leave it. Then I looked at my son and asked the only question that mattered. Did you ever once imagine how it would feel for me to hear all of you discussing where I would land after my home was sold? He had no answer. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of them. I simply let the truth do its work. Nora slid the formal notice across the table. Elise confirmed the real estate matter was closed. My neighbors sat in quiet support. The meeting ended without shouting. Just the sound of chairs scraping and the quiet footsteps of people who had walked in expecting an easy victory and walked out, understanding they had lost something far more valuable than money. In the weeks that followed, the house grew quiet again. Not lonely, accurate. I hung a simple framed card on the wall near the dining table. It reads, "Do not confuse my quiet with consent." Some people will call that bitter. I call it clarity. Because getting older has taught me this. Love without respect quickly becomes management. Concern without permission becomes strategy. And family, when mixed with entitlement, can be more dangerous than any stranger. But age has also taught me something more powerful. You don't need to raise your voice to reclaim your life. Sometimes, you only need the truth, a few good witnesses, and the courage to press play. Looking back, that was my quiet revenge. Not on them, but on the woman I used to be, the one who kept the peace at the cost of her own voice. And I finally got her back. End.